When I went down to Honduras the first time in 2002, before I went to Palestine, if I recall correctly, the name of the president was Maduro, Ricardo, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the things that happened was that I went to different communities, campesino indigenous communities, a lot of whom were located in the mountains where there were forests. And every once in a while you would see these big swaths of forest on fire. They said that the controlling timber interest in Honduras would periodically burn, do clear cutting and burn the forest, and that because of the clear cutting of the timber at the time, that it would actually leave it vulnerable to fire. I mention this because the next time I went to Honduras as a teacher, I was in school when Miguel Facusa died. I did not know in between 2002 and 2015, when I went to Honduras, that there had been a particular kind of event. What do they call it? When a series of incidents happen as a form of a cluster. I've already done the tracking. You already know. I had a spreadsheet at one point in time. I had only been able to get one person in alleged law enforcement to do anything close to competently engage their job. And there was something about his last name that struck me. He had the same last name as a former president in Honduras. It was part of a very prominent Honduran family, that name was. One day I did a cross-reference. I went and I looked through Raytheon press releases because I had a theory. My theory was that there had been something that happened regarding the frequency and propensity for activist political leadership, as well as people identified as journalists, specifically radio journalists, who had either the maternal or paternal surname of Cruz, getting murdered in proximity to announcements from Raytheon concerning a specific type of technological advance regarding its product lines. I also tried to plug in this other last name to see if there were correlations, and surely there were. Different kind of technology. It had to do with satellite location technology and things related to weather monitoring. I went down there in 2002 to help set up a low-powered FM radio station. This was right before and around the time that Daniel Pearl was murdered in Pakistan after being kidnapped. Now, I've already done my investigation. There was something by an organization called Pearl Industries, if I am correct, that was a topic of litigation between the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran, specifically concerning an intelligence system. That intelligence system goes back to a time frame when there were other decisions that were being engaged regarding border security under the name of a project called IBIS, related to the Islamic Republic of Iran, or rather Iran prior to the revolution. At some point, the people that were involved in developing this nascent border security technology in conjunction with the Iranian counterparts gave it a very bad assessment. Well, these things are too theoretical. There's no way they could work practically. It involved a specific matrix related to a particular kind of time-spatial arrangement correlating with various kinds of photographic surveillance. It was supposed to provide, I believe, some form of remotely engaged sensitivity regarding magnetic technology, a form of permeable magnetic boundary on the border zone that would also have some sort of movement or geothermal or thermal imaging triggering when it came to recording things that were going on at the border area. They didn't want Iran to have it. They didn't want that project to be something that Iran developed. So it got trashed and it got sold. It got determined that it was unviable and it got discounted and it got sold. And later, in a very specific set of time frames, what ended up appearing? Well, this alleged technology sharing relationship the United States, including the military, was supposed to have with the Islamic Republic of Iran regarding the Pearl system, the Pearl intelligence system, was literally called Pearl. And they literally had Daniel Pearl on site, kidnapped and murdered conveniently on, if I'm not mistaken, the exact 10-year anniversary of the decision in that case. I'm looking right now at a document I found several years ago. It was in the fall of 2017 I first found it. I remember I was in Houston at a library looking at it. It's from the Chicago Religious Leadership Network on Latin America, dated for November of 2011. I found it in October of 2017. Number 1. 5 October 2011. 2 leaders of the La Aurora settlement, members of the Unified Campesino Movement of the Aguan, MUCA, Pedro Alfredo Matamoros Bonilla and Heider Jael Sanchez Cruz, were shot at 10:30 a.m. by an unknown parties at San Ysidro Sinaloa farm in the Bajo Aguan. According to a preliminary analysis of the actions, the shots fired at the 2 leaders of MUCA, who are currently hospitalized in serious condition, came from the African palm plantations of the San Ysidro farm, property of landholder and palm producer Mikel Facusa. MUCA leader Johnny Rivas noted that Pedro Alfredo Matamoros Bonilla was shot with 3 bullets, one of which entered his mouth and exited through his ear. Heider Jael Sanchez Cruz was shot twice in the groin. Now, in June of 2002, there was another political leader in another part of the world that was shot in the groin. This is a quote from here. They were driving by the San Ysidro farm, which is under permanent vigilance by Mikel Facusa security guards, who shot from there at the vehicle. There's no doubt which side of the highway they were attacked from. It was from the plantation. Pedro Matamoros is gravely wounded and his life is in danger, Rivas stated. Next. 10 September 2011. In the evening, unknown persons assassinated student Ramon Antonio Cruz Lara, age 17, with gunshots. Ramon was a resistance activist and son of the teacher Hector Cruz, member of COPEMA and FNRP of La Lima Cortez department. The youth had no problems. I was already out of Honduras, outside of the Cortez department, by September of 2015, just so you know. But around this time frame, in September in 2015, there was an attack on a campesino community in the Cortez department called La Caridad. That was the name of the campesino community. One of my former students, whose by the name was named Jael, lived in that community. May 2011. Campesino Jose Paulino Lemus Cruz of the Brisas de Eden cooperative belonging to the Campesino Movement of the Aguan, MCA, was shot dead from a passing motorcycle as he was walking to sell fish in Rio Claro. Other members of the group discounted robbery as a motive. None of the victims' belongings appeared to have been taken. Supporters of the campesino movements say the 2 latest deaths bring the number of activists killed in the valley over the last 15 months to 27. 10 September 2010. Enrico Alfredo Larios Cruz of the Peasant Association Company Union Catracha, MCA, murdered alongside his companion Rodriguez Valdez by firearm near the village Honduras Aguan in the municipality of Trujillo. 9 August 2010. Esteban Garcia Cruz, age 45, from the Cooperativa 25 de Abril, Muca, was murdered by unknown individuals driving a white SUV vehicle. Now this is the very painful one. May 2010. Gilberto Alexander Nunez Ochoa, age 27, and Jose Andres Oviedo, age 26, were shot dead inside a home in the Colonia Cruz Roja 2 at kilometer 11. Since June 28, 2009, Nunez consistently participated in mobilizations of the National Front of Popular Resistance, serving in the Security and Discipline Committee, where he helped identify military or police infiltrators whose goal was 1. To photograph protesters, and 2. Provoke the police commandos by attacking private and public facilities and establish chaos. Nunez had also spent 2 months accompanying President Manuel Zelaya in the Embassy of Brazil, where Mr. Zelaya took refuge after he returned to the country on September 21st, 2009. Now, Mel Zelaya returned to the country September 21st, 2009. What was happening regarding the embassy on March 13th of 2010? March 13th of 2010 was April, May. 2 months before May 13th of 2010, wasn't it? Continuing. Disappeared. 30 August 2011, Jose Reynaldo Cruz Palma, president of the Community Council Patronato of Planeta neighborhood in San Pedro Sula. According to his family members, he was kidnapped by agents of the DNIC and preventative police when he was traveling by public transport along with his wife Nubia Carvajal between La Lima Cortez and their home in the neighborhood of Planeta. The bus he was riding in was intercepted by various agents of both police forces who were driving in 2 vehicles. One was a gray Mazda double cab pickup truck with the partial license plate BP50, and the other was a patrol vehicle of the preventative police. The uniformed agents got on the bus, said to his wife that the problem was not with her but with her partner, and took him by force. This one discusses critically wounded. 5 October 2011. 2 leaders of the La Aurora settlement, members of the Unified Campesino Movement of the Aguan, Pedro Alfredo Matamoros Bonilla and Hader Jael Sanchez Cruz. And then again. Now, right above the one I'm looking at now, which was already mentioned, what do I say? 8 September 2011. It's 2 days before. Medardo Flores, a 61-year-old journalist with Radio Uno, was shot dead near his home in Puerto Cortez when he drove into an ambush and his car was sprayed with bullets. Flores was a supporter of ousted former President Manuel Zelaya and was a regional treasurer for a pro-Zelaya group. Irina Volkov, Director General of UNESCO, condemned the murder. Arnulfo Aguiar, Radio Uno's founder and director, told the local press that Flores spent the 1980s in exile to escape from persecution by the repressive forces of the state. Radio Uno has often been the target of harassment and raids by the police and army since the coup. Aguilar narrowly escaped an armed ambush outside his home on 27 April 2011. 16 journalists have been killed in Honduras since February 2010. Now that's the reference or the description of Medardo Flores. But he's not the only one. For July 2010. Now this one is specifically concerning to me because Flores is also, like many Spanish surnames, a very common surname for people from the Philippines and of Filipino descent. This is dated for the 4th of July on 2010. 5 years, by the way, before the 4th of July of 2015. But 2 years after I left working with many people, including people who shared this surname, Roger Antonio Funes Flores was shot to death at about 6 a.m. in El Progreso as he was bicycling to the agricultural market as he did each Sunday morning. 2 men on a motorcycle fired at him, hitting him in the leg and then killing him with 4 bullets to the head. Funes was a leader of the FNRP in El Progreso and a regular commentator on Radio Progreso. Roger was president of the neighborhood council Patronato of La Colonia 18 de Septiembre. He had 2 daughters. El Progreso is a neighborhood in the northern part of Honduras that is known to also be, at least these days, a very important area when it comes to organizing for workers' rights in Honduras. It has a very substantial history, including in confrontation concerning the railroad sector. As a matter of fact, I recently, while I was in Texas, met a woman who was from El Progreso, and part of her family legacy was connected to that specific event. Her daughter didn't want to go to public school. Just so you know. This, really? 23 March 2010. Jose Manuel Flores, a prominent FMRP member and a social sciences teacher, was assassinated at the San Jose del Pedregal High School in front of his students by a death squad comprised of heavily armed men wearing ski masks and civilian clothes. This incident left behind key evidence for investigation, arrest, and prosecution, since as the assassins fled, the ski mask of one of the attackers became entangled in the razor coil over the fence which they had cut open to look for their victim. Now there's other events, individuals. This is just 2010 and 2011. You know what this is? This is the time frame during which both the Chicago pension systems was laying down 10 years worth of outlays based on the previous 10 years. And it was also during the time frame wherein they were finalizing their deals set up on the murder of Senator Edward Kennedy for a renaming under the auspices of the Obamacare, or rather Affordable Care Act, which happened to go into effect when? Well, it would say 24 March 2010. There's something here, though. It's very important. 17 March 2010. What happened on 17 March of 2009? 17 March 2010. Francisco Castillo, age 50, a member of the FMRP and a friend and associate of priest Father Andres Tamayo, was assassinated in La Residencial Las Uvas de Comayagüela, Tegucigalpa. Father Tamayo was expelled from Honduras by the Micheletti coup government in 2009. Previously, Mr. Castillo and his spouse had been unlawfully detained in September 2009 and harassed again in December 2009. Those are very important dates for somebody's pension scheme. Do you know that? But there's one more. 17 March 2010. Jose Antonio Cardoza and Jose Concepcion Carias, both around 50, were killed at noon by unidentified individuals who opened fire with a shotgun as the campesinos were driving home after a day's work in the Carbonal community, Bonito Oriental, Colon Department. The two farmers were leaders in the Brisas Cooperative of Cotafor and had received death threats from the alleged landowner Carlos Diaz, who was represented by a legal representative, said officials of the National Agrarian Institute in Toccoa, Colon Department, on Friday, March 12th. AINA presented a complaint before the public prosecutor's office. About 25 families occupy and inhabit the past 4 years about 60 acres that were once property of the Honduran Forest Development Corporation, or Cotafor. Now, I mapped this all out in a spreadsheet. It was actually horrible. It was one of the most horrible things. I went by patrilineage, matrilineage. I went by date. I went by area. I went by method of execution, or whether they survived. I went by the references to the motor vehicle, and then I compared it with news releases from Raytheon. Within 24 hours of the dates of these deaths, Raytheon posted news releases about some sort of technological innovation or advancement to specific product lines. Now, if you allowed for benchmarking with a variance of certain time frames, there were also follow-ups. This was the specific document I found at that time. I only went through 2010 and 2011, but there were others. The crews from Copan, around the time that they assassinated an actual member of the government. That's just one example. Now, there might be some contestation because there's been a number of attorneys that have also been murdered in Honduras. I'll be honest with you, I only found one named Cruz, just so you know. But there seems to be a pattern here. More than a pattern, don't you think? Did somebody think they were going to go to Mexico because somebody had already called up a bunch of the technologies that had been allowed to be beta tested and thought what? They were going to collect? I went to the office of Senator Ted Cruz in November of 2017, several times. I was homeless and on the street. I had information that was materially relevant to things that were going on at a very high level including an act of nuclear sabotage involving people who had alleged to be duly elected to Congress that resulted in an announcement of a submarine whose leader, whose captain was a woman, that went down in the ocean and killed everybody on it. They downed a submarine. Not Cruz. The other one, right? Did Cruz have insurance when what he should have been doing was something else? These are very serious matters. This is not about anybody's fucking retirement system. You don't have the right to get away with this, and it's gone too far. Your licenses are all cut off tonight. What are you going to do?